The time is 5:03, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Lisa, could we have a roll call, please?
Director Seaver.
Here.
Director Rice.
Here.
Director Karati Simon.
Here.
Director Sadi. Director Lackey.
Here.
Superintendent Norman.
Here.
And Board Chair Rob.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. The meeting's now called to order. Next item on our agenda is Ingenza. We have Jackie Coleman and Rochelle Vanden Heuvel, and they're going to talk about the facility deep dive, as we like to call it.
Yes, so we like to call it our facility planning process.
Ladies, the
Similar. Yeah,
floor
thank
is
you.
yours.
Okay, do you guys have a copy of
Yeah.
our project development agreement?
Yes.
Okay, I'll hold on to these. But before I jump into the project development agreement, I want to just talk briefly about the process because it'll help you understand this a little bit more. And so our facility planning process is essentially two phases. The first phase we call the development phase. The second phase, the execution phase, and the project development agreement covers the first phase only. And so when we're thinking about the first phase, we're thinking about all the planning that goes into creating this facility assessment. And we actually have some examples of what that looks like. And so basically what we do is comb every single part of your facility. We bring in subject matter experts, so roofing, mechanical, will do masonry, anything that's dealing with your facilities. We look at, we develop a deficiency list, we develop solutions to those deficiencies, and we also develop estimates for those particular costs. And so if there's anything that we find right away as we're starting this assessment, we'll come back to you, we'll raise flags. But this is a very interactive assessment process, and it's very detailed and comprehensive. And so we call it a 10-year plan because it's really giving you an idea of what's happening in your facilities now, what is needed now versus what's needed 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And so when you think about your long-term facility maintenance planning, this is also a resource to aid you in that as well. And so the book that you have is what is essentially the result of this planning process. And so the facility assessment process is really three components. One is really looking at the infrastructure, your building infrastructure. Luke, who you guys haven't seen in a while, but hopefully you remember, manages that process, and the sub-consultants that work under us for that. And then the second component is the educational adequacy component. And so we're looking at your building infrastructure, but we also need to understand what's happening in your spaces. And so do you have more space than you need? The space that you have now, is it adequate for teaching 21st century learning or even thinking beyond that, right? And so that's part of what Rochelle heads up, if you want to talk to that a little bit and how that works. That's the second component. The third component to this assessment is an operations audit. And so we come in and we literally look at 3 years worth of invoices to see where you're spending your money. And so when you're looking at a comprehensive assessment and facility deficiencies, you need to understand where you're spending money. And if you were to tackle some of the deficiencies, where you will save money, because that directly impacts that operating budget. And so as we worked with you through your strategic planning process, your facilities naturally came up because the two are related. When you talk about your financial plan, your academic plan, and then ultimately your operating plan. And so it's kind of the big picture of everything. If you're looking for an operating levy this fall, part of that is really understanding where your facilities are. If you're asking for money, you kind of need that big picture to make sure that you're doing more than just maintaining, but you're also looking into the future in your facilities and what you'll need to maintain that. And so that's the gist of the facility planning assessment. Part of the process in that first phase also includes community engagement, communications, and everything that goes into creating eventually a project option to move forward with. And that can be anywhere from 3 months to 18 months. But what we designed this project development agreement around is essentially a potential FY 2023 election. So if you remember the financial information that Mike Holdheiser shared at the community engagement meeting, the bar graph where you essentially have debt off and you have an opportunity to do some facility improvements, that was right around that fiscal year 2023. And so we would be looking to develop a plan in order for you to tackle your facility improvements right around that time so you can keep the tax impact as minimal as possible. So any questions on the facility assessment? So basically what this project development agreement covers is that first phase, so that development phase. And what I'll point out to you, which I think would be most important to you, is the second page, number 2, the compensation piece and how that works. So we're saying the total amount to develop a facilities plan and eventually an option, a project option to move forward with. Community engagement, everything that's involved in that first phase is roughly $97,000. Part of this amount is our time, so Ingensa's time, which we hold cost on, but the other part of it is the other consultants that we have to bring in to help us assess your facility. So you have the architect, you have the mechanical engineer, civil engineer, all the design team as part of this cost. And so essentially what this is saying is that the district will pay a portion of that $97,000 as we move forward in that development process. And essentially that's just what we're getting invoiced by our sub-consultants. So if an architect billed us $5,000, we're just gonna invoice you $5,000 in order for us to pay them for their time in this process. The remainder of that fee will be rolled into a final project option. And so what we're saying is that we plan to hold our costs. The architect is also planning to hold their costs or part of that cost, majority of that cost until that time. And that's essentially how that piece works. Any questions on that? So a breakdown of that piece is actually on that very last page. If you wanted to understand the ins and outs of what's being held, what's not being held, what's being billed, and what's not being billed. Now, one of the things that I mentioned, and I think is part of your discussion today, is how the facility piece is a big piece of creating this operating plan and going out for the operating levy. And what we wanted to talk to you about was kind of the timing of this all, because we're working on a very tight timeline for your operating levy. And one of the reasons why we're here today presenting this is because, again, the facilities piece was a major part of what came out of that strategic planning process. And it's also a major component of that operating levy. And what we've come to realize is that working through this process with you guys, wanting to go out this fall for an operating levy, that you don't have all the components yet to do that. And so what we are wanting for you today is get an understanding of where you stand with going out for an operating this fall versus going out for an operating levy next fall, because frankly, we don't have all the pieces yet. And what we don't want to do is alienate the community. And so it's very difficult to go out and say that we need $500 per pupil unit, but we're not quite sure what we need because we don't have all the components, and we may come back to you in 5 years to do that. Versus we understand where we are with our facilities. We understand what we need from an academic perspective. We understand what our financial plan is. And this is how we need to move forward, and here's all the data behind that.
So the vote to be postponed a year?
Be postponed to November 2022. So roughly about 12 months, because it would be around the same timeline. August would be when you would need next year to also adopt a resolution for an election, but you'll be doing it together. Not saying that having an election this year isn't feasible. We can make it happen if that's what the board chooses. We just want to make sure that we have all the components to do that. So either way can work, but it's a communications effort too, to make sure that everyone's on board this fall. And to also make sure that you understand what you're asking for and why you're asking for it, because that's part of the message to the community.
And so I understand, we don't have, or haven't had anything like this done before, or how long ago has it?
Gosh, my assumption is over 10 years. Over 10.
I think we did it before we did this meeting.
Way, yeah.
Okay. When you mean the school swap? That remote with flip
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, before we did all the changing in this building.
Yeah.
And
Do we have that done?
So that was over 20 years ago.
Yes, that's the one,
Yeah.
And that was done by architectural resources. They probably been the architects, but no one.
I thought it was all through ERI.
Everything, yeah, at the
Oh, they did
time.
the whole thing?
Yeah.
That's usually we do it every 2 with the district.
Okay, and so that's well outdated.
Wow.
Because as Jackie was talking, I was thinking the same thing, I said, well, how do we be able to use this information if we were, putting a operating,
Because I don't think anyone ever did anything.
no. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes some sense, what she's saying is to get this done, because this is gonna, well, first of all, give us the information that we need as to what we need to ask for, and then also you can plan moving forward. Yeah, it's very nice, but with the costs.
With a cost like that, the district is, how do you justify that?
Good question, and it's not just you guys, because, something like this is expensive, it's an investment, and that's why you have to make sure that it's something that you need and really want to do. But it's also something that the Minnesota Department of Education realized was an expense, which is why you're allowed to use your long-term facility maintenance money to do that. And we try to make it palatable by holding our costs and rolling it into the project costs. So in essence, you're then using bond dollars for the majority of it. But for the part that we progress bill use, that $30,000, you can code to long-term facility maintenance dollars because it's part of developing facilities plan, it's professional services. So
And the
we,
whole face of education has changed.
I know, that's the thing too, and now with
Books are out the
everything,
window now.
with everything that's happened, I mean, you get kind of shell shocked. I know you need it, I mean, I
I know what's gonna
understand
happen in the
that.
next 20 years, it's gonna be the Jetsons, We
So-
laughed about it in school, that's what they're gonna be doing.
and I know there's pros and cons too. I think you guys are in financial situation, dire straits, I put it, I don't diplomatically say it, you need this operating levy. So I think there's pros and cons to going now versus going next year. It would be a lot easier to communicate to your community and to get people on board when you have all the pieces involved.
Well, I think the difficulty is that if we want to do some of these types of long-term projects, we're not gonna have the numbers, to know what we want. We can look at, people costs of some of the things we talked about, like curriculum but without this information, I mean, what do you say? Well, we think we're gonna need to redo this or redo this, but you don't know, so how do you say, we need $30,000 to, redo our camera? I mean, you just have no idea.
And that's kind of the con, right? So you could say we need 30,000 and you'll have a community member that says, why?
Yeah.
What's your answer to that, I guess? And, our job is to provide you the information in order for you to communicate to your constituents, and we don't feel we have the big picture. Can we do it? Yep, we're experts. We can make anything happen. Tom Rapp is very good at what he does. He can make anything happen. But there's other options, I guess, and it's really up to the board.
Another thing to consider as you think about your strategic plans, what really came out is what I call the bookends. You really want to build early childhood and you want to build that kind of high school experience too. But you don't know what you need for facilities, you don't know the capacity of your facilities, you don't know yet. And so to build that into your operating referendum, you really don't know what you need yet for that.
And your strategic plan is really what's going to sell the community on your ask.
How does postponing it affect our, like, contract with you? Are we able to do we still work on that? Or do you guys do this and then we come back and just fill in blanks? Like, how does that, and then the wrapped contract, that strategy is too, like, if we already contracted, like, does it just extend because we have an agreement to extend?
Yeah, for us, this project development agreement is a new agreement to start this process. And so for the strategic planning agreement, we really have one obligation left under that, technically on paper, and that's to have that one engagement meeting in September. We would just parlay and start this right away.
So that means we're putting off the referendum ask.
We're a year early, right? Because it expires in 2023.
Yeah.
So we were asking a year early,
Oh, and we're just gonna wait.
and then this would be, this is an idea to.
And there's a reason why people go out a year earlier, right? They want that, if we fail,
Yeah.
you want to, so, it's a big decision. But then also if you do it the right way, you can pass it that second time. And I hate to even say this stat, when districts sometimes put bond elections with operating levies, it's good because it's easy for the constituents to differentiate between the two. When they're separate, it's really hard. If you go out for an operating levy now, a bond election 2 years from now, they'll say, I just gave you money, you just asked me for, not knowing or really understanding the difference between the two. But sometimes when they're on the same ballot, the one downfall is that the operating levy will go and the bond won't. And so people like to say no to something. And I say, well, I know they need the operating levy and just say no to the bond. Sometimes that can happen. And so that's just to give you an idea that people will support schools via an operating levy. It takes a little bit more time to get them on board with the facilities things because it's a lot bigger and it's in the building sometimes where they can't see it.
And I think that historically, our constituents do want, they want to support the school, so to me, it is really, it'd be really hard to figure out what you need to ask for without knowing what's failing. Maybe if you look at some of these and they'll say, this is, this building is failing, or this is whatever, this is the cost to fix it, and it's really, the comprehensive facility packet is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the key to, I think, any election is not consultants, it's really telling a story. It's having the objective data and then being able to tell the story, engage your community, and that's what this process does. And so we have at least 3 community engagement meetings in this process that we're gonna make sure are very well attended, because it's, important, and we want that time. And right now, it's really condensed.
What year was the last one?
I mean, we're gonna go for it.
2018.
Your check this year, it was,
We did one in, I had them before, was it in 12?
it was 12 or 14.
Usually it's a 10-year.
It's a 10-year, I thought it was like a 10-year cycle, so that's probably close. If it's-
I think it was in 12.
So you asked in 12, maybe what to affect in
Goes in
13, and then it goes
Yeah,
till it
right.
expires in 2020.
Yeah, 3 and 12 or something like that.
And
That
that,
makes,
what scares me is that how our community has, our community obviously is changing some, obviously it is. And so I think that the first few times when I was in the district and we went for a referendum, it was like 100%, everybody wanted it. Then it was a little bit less, then a little bit less, where they don't pass as easily as the one before that. And, you know, and I just think that that's change in the community and.
I guess
So
my hope
that's
is that
scares me.
people know what they're investing in. They know our facilities are dated, they know we need an upgraded curriculum, all that. So hopefully they're investing in their kids' future,
Right,
you know,
and,
hopefully.
yeah,
'Cause I mean, we got some strong buildings here, we gotta just make the
Yeah.
improvements and.
and we do have pride, I mean, let's face it, Chisholm does have a lot of pride in their buildings, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you I was gonna listen.
I'm surprised.
I don't know.
I am too.
So Wendy, go ahead.
Okay. To kind of cut to the chase, I guess. The question in front of us is, do we want to go out for a operating referendum this fall alone? Just operating. And then come back with a bond referendum. Now, I'm of the opinion that we need to focus on the programs for kids first. That's just my opinion. Get the programs up and running. The buildings themselves, other than the things that we all know are going on, are pretty solid. Or do you do both at the same time? And Jackie makes a good point. One pass, one more.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And I won't let that happen here because we're gonna
So
communicate.
the options that we have, other than trying to pass this thing, in my eyes, are not good. We can't pass this. It's just my opinion. All right.
Well, that's anytime you go for a referendum. I mean, devastating if they don't pass, but I honestly don't feel cause you get through if you don't go for them.
Right. So let's assume that we go forward and we do the operating ask this fall and it passes, then we can focus on doing a bond facility. And if for some reason the operating one doesn't pass, we would be able to ask for it again in conjunction with the facility.
Yep, you can, but you wanna make sure you have the trust of the community to do that. And so if you go out this fall, you gotta have your story right, and the question is, can you do that in 2 months?
Oh, we're not gonna have this information.
That's a 60 to 90 day process, yeah, just to pull that together
Yeah.
and prioritize. And we do survey students, teachers, staff, because for the programs, we need to understand what spaces are needed for the programs. And that goes into your operating ask.
Yeah.
And so it's a catch-22, and in, I guess my question would be, do you have things financially to hold you over until next fall?
We all
Yes or
stare at
dollars?
I mean, it's a subjective question because,
Come on up.
And why I say it's a subjective question is because it's where does your comfort level lie? Do we have funding to support us are you deficit spending just purely in the general fund? Yes, you are. If we didn't have ESSER dollars, we're looking at about a negative $400,000 deficit spend. You know, this coming year, what would be this coming year, and then as you progress forward. Do you have a fund balance to cover the deficit spend at this time? Yes, you do. Do you have open contracts? Yes, you do. So there's various considerations. It really just comes down to what is your comfort level, knowing that without ESSER. We do have ESSER, and that will help us, as we'll be discussing later, do different things with curriculum and needs that have been waiting a very long time. However, you still are deficit spending, but you do have a fund balance. And so can you make it until, the next time you have an opportunity to vote? Of course you can. It just comes down to then, what is going to be the ask and what is the confidence of the passing? And that's why I say it's subjective.
the ESSER funds, let's just say we didn't get any, where would we be? Where would we be?
You would be $400,000 deficit spending.
Yeah.
And you would not be able to entertain the curriculum cycle and the various things.
So because of the generosity of our federal government, we have some money that'll carry us 3 years. And what happens after 3? It's gone, unless some miracle happens. Second thing is, how many kids are we gonna have enrolled in this district this fall? Does anybody know? I don't know. So let's just say for argument's sake that everybody comes back that left for homeschool, whatever it is. It's a better scenario, it is. But I just think if the residents see that we got this money from the feds as a lift, this is just a lift to get going, to do something like Kristen said, with our curriculum, with programs, with this, okay, all of it needs to be done. There's no doubt about it. And without that money, we don't do it. We can't do it because we don't have the money. So I think we go for the ask for this fall. This is my opinion. Because if we wait and then it's 4 years down the road, what happens in that 1 year that we don't have the ESSER funds and we don't have anything?
Well, that's what I was kind of gonna look to you, Clarice, for some, like,
Yeah.
what's your company, after being on the board for as many years as you have and your comfort level, like, if you guys feel it's just more comfortable or a better scenario to ask this fall, I think that we should ask this fall. And we just hit the ground and get the message out there and focus on the operating levy that, and then piecemeal it out.
The one piece of advice, if that's the route you choose, that I would give you is to then message that there's going to be another question coming. Because people will believe, like if you just go out with one without saying, we're exploring this and we'll be coming with another question, then it's going to feel to them as though you just keep going to the well and they're not, you want as best as you can, should you choose to move forward this fall, your constituents to understand that there's going to be another ask and they're basing their vote off of at least a concept of there's going to, at a minimum, if that's the route you choose, you at least have to start messaging that something else is coming.
Yeah, and then the other piece of that is just really understand what that ask is and why. If it's for programmings and academics, that may change once you get the facility information. And then you may have to explain that again to your community, why that happened.
So the study, how long does it take?
60 to 90 days. 90 days, I would say. It's very in-depth.
Yeah, it's very.
And yet we need the staff back in the buildings, we survey the staff, we do focus groups, we're in the spaces. It's a very detailed audit.
It's normally 120 days.
It's normally 100
Condensed
word,
version.
where this is the condensed version. But it's information you need in order to make decisions.
Yeah, I was surprised when you said 90 days, 60 to 90 days on this type of.
I keep Luke locked up and then I'll just let him go. Crack the whip on him. Yeah, it's
really
it takes a lot of time.
Okay,
Can think about the timing of that, right?
Okay,
Lonnie? But if this is on the docket, we would wanna get going on that. Could be some stuff we uncover in a month that can help you if you decide to go out and look off.
so Cindy, can you turn that thing off?
90 degrees.
Please,
Are you cold?
no. Okay. Hearing. Hearing. I like hearing when you talk to me.
Any more questions on the audit or the development agreement? Oh, that does make it.
So, Jackie, do we need to do the question tonight?
I would like so, yes, I'm just anxious to get started. But if you're, only if you're comfortable, we don't do anything unless we have everyone on board.
So the question is, do we go out this fall or not?
The question is, do we start a facilities audit or not? You can think on,
Oh, right,
Oh,
because they can do both at the same time, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, we can still decide if, even if, okay, so we decided to do this facility audit. And we can still go out for ours in the fall and then go out for the next one.
We can, yeah.
you can, there's pros and
Pros and
cons
cons,
to it, yeah.
So we have a little time.
Either way, there's gonna be pros and cons, cause when you look at a thing and you see two right in front of you, two saying, well, I want this and they want this, that might be even a bad situation.
Well, and that's what Jackie said, sometimes one passes and one
One
doesn't.
doesn't.
Right, but I think you're most concerned with the operating levy. I think you'll get that either way between the two. My concern is just not having the information. If you have the trust of the community, it's very easy to lose that. And so my concern is not going out prepared this fall. And so if you choose to go out this fall, have your I's dotted, your T's crossed, and I'm not sure we have enough information to do that
As far as the operating,
as far as an operating levy. Because part of that operating levy is facilities, and that's, the programming in your facilities are tied. So just something to think about. It's my job to be the bearer of bad news
Well.
sometimes. I mean, I want you guys to be successful, but I also don't want to place you in the bond. But I think that you have a good communications consultant on board, that if we were to delay 10 months, that we can sell both at the same time, that you wouldn't be jeopardizing your financial health.
So, Ryan, so where does the money for this come from? Okay. And that's, do we have that budgeted, or is that?
She can better explain, but you just approved the long-term facilities plan.
Oh, right,
But
okay.
those chips
And
can
it was-
move
yeah.
around as necessary, and she did have some things that were upticks down the road to reflect some of this work. So that's fluid.
Okay.
So if you feel comfortable with the facility assessment, we can take that today or we can wait, sooner the better. And then if you feel comfortable on the operating levy piece too, but that's your decision tonight.
I'm comfortable with the facilities study. I am. It has to be done. I'm not comfortable with waiting. Okay,
And the realtor isn't here, and I was gonna say this is the ultimate home inspection that we've been looking at.
The most
And now we are.
comprehensive one ever. Everything is failing.
so,
The sale falls.
so we're gonna vote on your proposal
Okay,
tonight.
okay.
And then I'll see what the other 5 members, I already have my opinion, so we'll see what they have to say. I value their opinion, I do. And if it's not what I want, that's okay, it's whatever it is. But comfort, you're right, comfort.
Yeah.
And the question is, so you have ESSER funds that we wanna build on. And we wanna backfill after they're gone. And the taxpayers, with Mr. Hoheisel leading the charge, telling everybody that this is what it's gonna cost you, depending on the ask. And you already know what my ask is, but I'm not gonna tell anybody. Okay, the point of it is do we have enough to carry us for another year? Kristen says yes. So if the board decides to wait a year for the referendum operating, I would be okay with that. we could maybe smooth the path a little bit more, but I'm kind of impatient. And that's just me, so. We'll see what the members have to say.
Okay. And I think Adrian too, because you're the guy that's gonna be out there selling this. Along with you guys, so. It won't be us, so the comfort level of all of you. We can sell it for you. We can get you the information for it though.
The people in this town know who we are. That they trust us.
And that's good, and that's what we will need to make sure that this goes.
So on the operating, when do we have to make a decision?
Fairly soon, you have to adopt a resolution by August 20th,
Okay,
so you have a couple of weeks.
all right, so
One meeting.
We have one more meeting.
we got another meeting.
Yeah.
So we can,
And I,
and plus we have a working session coming up. We
Okay.
don't know what date yet.
Before the 20th.
It'll be
Yeah.
before that, it'll be before that. How's
Yeah,
that?
so that's your deadline. I say, take some time, think through the pros and cons. And then, like I said, we're here either way. We just wanna make sure that, whatever you do, you're successful.
Can you just articulate one more time how one lends a hand to the other so they understand that the study truly is facilities, but the facilities dictate operations and why?
Absolutely.
Just so they
Right,
understand
so
how they go hand in hand.
Everything about your facilities is part of your operating budget. So all the way from the maintenance, all the way up to the academics and programs has to do with your facilities, even your enrollment. So not having an answer to whether you're gonna have students here this fall or not will not lend itself to selling whatever your ask is this fall. And so it's having all of that information so that you have a really good understanding of what your ask is gonna be so that you can sell it to your community. But everything about your facilities is your operating budget. And so the only concern is having that operating number now and then not having sufficient dollars to support whatever comes out of that facilities assessment. And that's again, part of that strategic planning process where your stakeholders said, we need more programming, we need this. The facility assessment kind of wraps that all up. This is how you get that, and then this is how much it's gonna cost to get that. And so that's, kind of the main reason why we wanted to discuss that with you today and say, let's just pump the brakes a little bit and think about this more thoroughly to make sure that we have a good approach.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions for Jackie?
It got hot here fast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me
Thanks,
again.
Jackie.
Thanks, you guys.
Should we stay or?
You can, yeah,
You can stay or you can go home.
Rochelle can stay, she's only got a 10-minute
She
drive.
can. But I'd like to be here too.
Okay.
we're not
We're gonna-
kicking you out.
Okay,
You see a bouncer here?
Well, if I get too hot, I may.
Yeah.
okay, you can turn
I
that
know
back
you're
on now, I
not.
just wanted, I
Can't hear that far away.
I'm old, got hearing problems. Okay, so anyhow, thank you again, appreciate that. Item B on the next item is Mrs. Hoheisel, Business Manager.
Are we gonna wait on the vote on, to vote on the,
Yeah.
let's do till after this, put a vote on? Okay.
Thank you. I'm gonna be a frequent flyer tonight, so I won't introduce myself every time I walk up here. One thing that I wanted to, and maybe it's hate to say clarify, because I think the board understood the conversation that we had at the last board meeting as it relates to the staffing of the business office. There has been some concern coming from kind of a random community members, maybe of a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of what I meant. So I wanna make sure that I clarify that first. They had heard, or at least as it's matriculated itself through the community, it has become that Chisholm Schools is in a dire situation. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that that statement is very much out of context. The dire situation lies in the staffing of the business office and therefore being able to do the job that office is meant to do. We're not in a dire position as far, and you've already discussed it, as far as, maybe we'll get that way, but as far as finance goes, we've talked about that already tonight. Your facilities, there's nothing that is absolutely immediate other than how to staff the business office. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear. I wanted to make sure I said that publicly again, so people, again, if there's confusion, I don't want to have your constituents up in arms or misunderstanding what was intended by that conversation. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen.
Okay. Now it is my distinct honor and high pleasure to introduce Alex Kaiser. Alex is the business manager for Hibbing Schools. And Alex and his band of people will be helping us in the business office, and we very much appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, and thanks for the introduction. I just wanted to say that we appreciate you taking it into consideration and look forward to a partnership, and feel free to meet our staff anytime or reach out with any questions or concerns.
Okay,
Well, we sure do appreciate you guys helping us out.
thank you. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.
Okay. Next item is to approve the agenda.
Which one? I'm
Okay, you wanna talk about?
Oh,
Okay,
okay. As I read through the agenda, I did notice, the, on action item, forget where I am. On action items E, D and E. I see we have two different attachments on D and E for taking action on Kristen to discontinue her current contract and then approve the new independent contract, and I noticed the attachments appear to be identical. I would recommend disregarding the attachment for discontinuing and just approve discontinuing her current contract and just to approve the new contract, and it would continue as the old one, just noting the hourly rate of pay rather than a monthly, and other things stay the same. It's under the superintendent's discretion, as far as the work hours and things, and then the mileage pay stays. So she has to be here to be in the office because maybe we're shorthanded in the office for one reason or there's, just things to catch up on because of the end of the year and the audit coming up, and maybe they need more information and giving. So we have to get more things ready. She's paid mileage both ways instead of just the one way because it would be a different situation. So include that mileage and keep the other things intact. Just keep the rate of pay would be the difference.
She's got a question. Kristen.
Kristen.
Well, and maybe it's more of a statement, so the independent contractor consultant agreement is listed as an amendment in your packet.
Yeah.
So maybe the D and E should just be,
Combined.
well, here's what it comes down to, and this was the discussion that I was having with Adrian and Bob. You have a choice, and so maybe that's why it's listed as, it's one or the other. It's either, assuming that you were to enter into an agreement with Hibbing, let's make that assumption. Either you're just completely done with my services, of which then you just discontinue the contract. Or you would approve the amendment to the contract, which adjusts the things that would need to be adjusted, which is the scope of service and how that service is performed, because that's now with Hibbing. So if that helps clarify with D, it's either a D or an E, not both.
Oh,
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, so I was a little confused too, because I saw
Well,
that I
because I
was.
couldn't figure out which way this was supposed to be either, it sounded like we were gonna.
Yeah.
Which one
So
and then-
it's up to the choice of the board of,
Oh,
in the
okay.
event you move with Hibbing, how you want my contract to be handled, which is either D or E.
Okay,
Alright,
that makes sense.
So-
I thought the amendment made more sense to me, assuming that we were going, yeah, that's what I thought, I was like, why don't we just amend it to clarify?
You have to
the
do
rules?
something with it.
Okay, I got it,
It's just pick which one.
so,
okay,
good, I'm
so
glad
this
we
is
brought
all
that up.
contingent on item C,
yes, that makes sense.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, so in other words, on the agenda, D or E would be if item C is approved, then we would delete item D.
Yep.
And if item C is not approved, then we would, if C is approved, we approve item E. If C is denied, we don't do anything.
Don't do anything, that's what I was gonna say, yeah. So if item C is approved, we just do either D or E, whatever we decide. And if item C is not approved, then we don't take any
Yeah.
action on that, we leave it, just as contract as is.
Yeah, so we'll have two motions. One to,
But that's good clarification, because
Yeah.
it was, just
One
just
to
because it
dis-
looks so similar, it was.
Okay, because nothing, yeah, that wasn't, okay.
one to
Alright,
discontinue, and item E is to
Okay, that,
approve.
I thought we were doing those goofy things where we like accept someone's resignation.
that's kind of threw me off.
Okay.
Done that, we're good.
I was like, I feel like this is one of those very true stuff processes that we do all the time. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
That makes sense. So with that clarification, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda, is that what we need?
motion is made by Jackie to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
I'll support.
By Clarice. Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Very good clarification.
Motion carries. Thank you, Clarice. Okay, next item is to approve the July 12, 2021 regular meeting minutes.
So made.
Motion by Shelley, is there support by Cindy? Any comments or questions on the minutes?
Very nice job.
Yeah, very nice job. Very easy.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Okay, next item is to approve the July 12th, 2021 working session minutes.
So we,
Motion is by Clarice, is there support by Jackie? Comments or questions on those minutes?
nicely done also.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move the superintendent's report until the end of the meeting. Got a lot to do here. Okay, item 7, correspondence, we have none. Item 8, consent agenda, we have none. Item 9, discussion, we have none. Moving to the action portion of our agenda. Item A, to approve a service agreement between Northern Fitness Solutions and Chisholm High School for a maintenance service schedule. Do we have a motion?
So made.
Motion by Clarice,
I just have one question. Are we doing, do we have to choose between 6 visits or 4 visits or on that one? Or does, I just was wondering.
So since it does get pretty light use, I think we could start with 4 and then
Move
based
up.
on any recommendation they have, if something changes, that we could change or amend it. But
I like that idea.
yeah,
I think we could definitely do the 4.
it's been needed for quite a while.
Yep. But I like that idea because it's probably really low use last year. the pandemic, and so this year we can get in there, and then if they say, yeah, we should probably up that.
And it's not open to the public.
Yeah,
Right. Okay, so we have a motion by Clarice, we have a second. Motion by Jackie. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item B is various exhaust fan replacement projects. Mrs. Holheisen,
I'm actually gonna turn it over to
Mr. Rakovich,
Or somebody wants to talk about.
Can I just ask a question, since Ingensa's still here, the folks are still here? Is something like this something we should get more information on before we make a decision of this dollar amount or magnitude?
This would definitely be something they would be looking at as part of the facility assessment without knowing what the proposal's for or what needs to be fixed and what the timeliness of it. It's hard to say right now, but yes, we would be looking at this as part of the facility assessment.
all that air quality stuff and, yeah,
All of that
that's part of the whole
gets
study.
analyzed, correct.
Okay, so is that something that, is this something that can wait? I mean, with this? I mean,
Right, that's what I was
if
gonna, that's what I
the
was gonna ask.
exhaust systems are failing or the.
So,
What is
This was a exhaust fans and 2 exhaust fans for Monster, and 1 exhaust fan.
typically for a welding classroom, you can't have the class unless you have the proper exhaust.
That's,
So those are things that you need.
that's what I'm wondering, how
Project.
dire are they?
The condition that they're in is pretty subpar. I mean, they work, but they're not, probably not.
I mean, would they pass inspection for
They
code?
wouldn't pass inspection, but Father Time is well on, and there's been going through a year.
do you think it'll make it 120 days when we have more information?
Oh, yeah, it'll make it 120 days, but
Because they don't do a lot of welding at the beginning of the year, do they? I mean, aren't they
It's gonna
any more
depend on
safety?
who we hire, whether they're gonna be doing.
Oh, right,
No.
industrial, you need this, industrial.
Straight 10-year wood.
I just wanna make sure that, I mean, if it's something like, I mean, is there like maybe 1 or 2 that are urgent or
the ones at the lawn, I got them with making the noises that they were making, but if you stand in the corner and lawn, you can hear them. Within the next couple months, I'll be back up in the snow, trying to get them back again, and it's just a constant battle back and forth.
But if we do the facility comprehensive plan, we'll have that information within at least 90 to 120 days, and then we could.
Because my concern would be if it's more than just a fan.
Yeah.
If it's a comprehensive systems needs.
And what we could do is ask group to focus on that right away. If we can get the contractors and we can function, have them do that study as quickly as possible.
And that makes sense, because you don't wanna fix just, the thing that you can see is absolutely wrong, or maybe it needs something else too.
Now, these prices wouldn't be something that would have changed since the bid service came in back in April.
The one thing that's on there that I really strongly suggest doing more for sure is there's a freezer and a cooler down at the lawn that they store food in when it's summer over Christmas break, and they're not alarm monitored. It's happened before where the freezers actually went down and there's $10,000 of food back, which goes.
Oh, walk-in cooler, freezer monitoring.
Yes, that would be one thing I don't think that would be on a study of that you're looking at. That would be one thing that's, I think, when we get set up with our computer system that we have right now, it sends out a text message that says, hey, your freezer is under, it's 30 degrees for 15 minutes, that is
Can we get that like priced out and, I mean,
separately.
separately?
Yeah, I
Could we do
have
that?
priced out already.
Okay.
It's $100 for those.
Okay.
So, George, I noticed the date on the bid. So this type of demolition and stuff like that, can it be done when kids are in the class?
Fans? The fans, you would have to, MEA weekend type of deal. Or
Christmas
before the
vacation.
kids come to school,
How many days, do we know how long the project would, can they do it over a long weekend or like
they figure they can do it.
3 days?
The freezers and that kind of stuff wouldn't affect the kids at all. That's out of it.
I mean,
That's running wire and stuff like that, that's not, I mean, it's not.
and this price, I mean, this is usually 30-day price thing, I mean, so do we know that it might have changed a lot?
There may be,
That's what I'm wondering, yeah,
But,
because this is
Yeah, that's-
submitted.
I mean, just considering how much wood has gone up.
Well, this, that usually is made of wood.
Now it has, yeah, I know.
Fans and-
But I would say I would like to see it priced out for the cooler, just, you know, that's, you gotta.
so why don't we do this? How about if we table this till another meeting, we get new prices, and then the study, and we'll see what happens. But the dilemma is, you know, they'll be in the school on the weekends.
No, we would do it on, we would work around the kids, work around schedule, MEA weekend. You know, there's a Monday off coming in, we pick it apart. It wouldn't be just one big.
But there's no sense in getting prices right now if we're gonna
do
table
study,
everything until we do
If
that.
we table it until we get the study finished, I mean, what do you guys think?
Other than the
Other
cooler.
than the cooler.
Other than the cooler, the cooler, if we can get prices,
The cooler for $64.
so
So
I
that's,
mean,
that was about $6,000.
Yeah,
He's
so-
gonna, he has more price.
Still have
So-
storage on it.
The cooler thing, I understand that, so we can pick this thing apart and do the cooler.
well, we will have, if anything over $5,000 has to be out on bids. Remember that, George, anything over $5,000 has to be bid, right? That's, I'm pretty sure that's quotes.
Quotes, not
Quotes, bid, okay, quotes. So that's the one thing, it has to be out there, you know, so.
So, okay, so Jamar bids the cooler, and then somebody else bids it.
Gives us a quote.
We see more than call to find a quote.
So,
And then we take the lowest quote, that's how it works.
You don't have to take the
No,
lowest
you
quote.
don't, no.
With a quote, you do not have bids, you have to take
Okay,
the
so
lowest responsible bidder.
tell me the difference between going out on bids and having a quote,
Dollar amount.
okay? So,
So you're, with the way we're established, a quote is, you would ask George or
Okay.
whoever
yeah,
to go and speak with multiple vendors
okay,
to spec it out and give their pricing. You are not legally bound in a quoting situation to choose the lowest price, because other things can come into consideration.
okay,
They just want you to make sure, you know, for the, back to the good of the taxpayer, to make sure you're reviewing what you spend and are doing it judiciously.
right,
With a bidding situation, that's advertised, and once you have the lowest responsible bidder, which means the lowest price is who you have to choose regardless of if that's your preference or not, whether you've ever worked with them or not, as long as they, and there's criteria that need to be met to be considered responsible. So that, and that's usually a higher dollar threshold, you're, you know, up into the $100,000 range, not the $5,000.
okay, then there you go. Okay, so now I understand it.
yeah, difference
We
between
both
bid and
understand.
Okay. Okay, I think you gotta do that cooler before school starts.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's, you know, we're talking about food.
Okay,
George?
I agree with you, but, I mean, I think some of the guys that worked here, they had to know, and it was.
Well, yeah, I remember that 5 years ago.
Okay,
And hold on, I'm trying to see.
so this is getting complicated.
We just
So,
need a couple quotes.
Yeah, he can just take care of that. We can vote to,
Whatever one George,
yeah, whatever he recommends.
I'll entertain a motion to table this pending a new quote for the freezer. Motion is by Shelley to table.
But do you wanna just remove it and then just have it put back on the agenda? Then we don't have to table it, we have to take
We have
the next day, right? I just, that way we're getting this, that way we just give George, like, hopefully we'll have it in two, I'm sure he'll have it for us. Just-
Okay. So what we're gonna do then is we're gonna remove item B from the action agenda. And then, George, you know what to do.
How many votes do we?
Based on the conversation, I'm confused by the board action because I'm hearing conversation of you're approving that this happens, trusting that George chooses the best, he will get at least 2 quotes and he will choose. So you're directing him to go get this started. Or is the board waiting for George to provide you 2 or more quotes so then you can choose?
No,
I think-
no.
Yeah, get the quotes and bring it back. You want to get the quotes and bring it back?
I don't know why we have to do that. Because we already know kind of what it's gonna be. I mean, it's not like it's gonna be much more than what they have on here.
I
Right?
think you should bring
Did he have the quote for 60?
Okay,
Because it's different than it's asking.
yeah,
Okay.
so because they're not broken up, I think just bring it back, okay? Your values, and then we'll just prove it and.
For the next meeting, then
For the August
bring a
meeting.
couple.
That way they have time to get them in before school, because school starts September 8th.
So then we want to table it since we're not going to take action the next game, so.
Me and Celine just put it right
We'll
back
just
on.
put it back on.
And then the motion will be approve the quote from Jamar for, it'll just be specific, approve the quote for Jamar or whatever, whoever. But we'll just know who, yeah, we'll have the exact dollar.
Because we just remove this because of table, we're gonna take action on that later tonight.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're gonna take that out, or we're gonna
Removed it from the agenda.
remove it from the agenda.
George will get quotes and bring them back to next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Item C is to approve the business services contract between Independent School District number 695, Chisholm Public Schools, and Independent School District number 701, Hibbing Public Schools. And contract is in your packet. And I think this is actually,
Yeah, no, I didn't have any questions or concern, it's really straightforward.
okay.
I'll make a motion.
Motion is by Clarice,
Support.
support by Jackie. Any comments or questions?
I see the training was added in there, so it's
Yeah,
a part of the contract, so that's great.
and the training aspect is in there, so that's good. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item D is to discontinue the current contract for business manager services.
I'm gonna do that. You just want to.
We just approve the amendment.
It's agreement. You don't want to. Just want
Item E.
Yeah.
This item E is to approve the new independent contractor consulting agreement from Kristen Hoheisel.
Not new, it's an amendment.
It has written in there, that's why I read it that way, sorry.
Sorry about it.
But yeah,
It's
So now we-
it's an
Okay.
amendment to,
Independent contractor consulting amendment for Kristen Hoheisel, including the federal mileage rate for travel. Do we have a motion? Motion by Shelley, support by Cindy. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item F is the long-term facility maintenance 10-year plan.
Before I move on to that, because I was explaining to Alex back there, just so, again, it's something that I'm sure you guys know, that it's not, the quote laws are actually $25,000 and above. Chisholm rules make it $5,000. So if the community is talking and saying by statute, this is not when we're required to go out for quotes, that's entirely true.
Right.
But within these walls, it's $5,000, so you're $20,000 less than what statute requires when going out to get quotes.
Oh,
Okay, just so you know that. Okay.
That's good to know.
Thank you for having me. What is in front of you again is 4 documents. We had discussed this at the last school board meeting, and it is your 10-year plan. We've had conversation on that tonight. So I'm actually just gonna say, barring any questions of what you saw and what we went over, I'm gonna ask that the board approve the resolution in the amount of $436,851, which will be added to the levy, part of the levy process. So you know you always have the opportunity to back off of this if you need to. You don't adopt your levy until December, but this gets it on the books and gets the process started.
This was presented last meeting.
It was.
And the resolution looks good. I just noted, and you might already have that there was the 2016.
Instead of 21.
No, there's was, I just
Wow,
saw
we're
the
just
bottom, but-
going back, living in 5 years.
Back to the future.
Yeah. And again, the reason why you do the resolution is because we're not adopting this early enough to have formalized minutes to submit to the Department of Ed. It's their proof that we've talked about it.
Good. Any other additional questions? I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, motion is by Jackie, support by Shelley.
That'd be a roll call?
Yes, it will.
Roll call. Take the roll.
That's okay, it hasn't happened much yet, Lisa.
I stopped it, I don't have my thing yet. Okay.
Director Seaver,
Yes.
Director Rice,
Yes.
Director Karati Simon,
Yes.
Director Latti,
Yes.
Superintendent Bowman.
You just
Doesn't have
No.
to.
He doesn't.
Then Board Chair Rob.
Yes, thank you.
Resolution's passed.
Resolution is passed. Okay, now. Okay. Item G on the action is to approve our strategic plan, both educational and financial. Do we have a motion?
I can make the motion.
Motion is by Clarice, your support by Jackie. Comments or questions on the strategic plans? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item H is to approve the contract between RAP Strategies Incorporated and Independent School District number 695 for upcoming referendum services. Mr. Rapp, you are with us.
I am.
Okay. We chatted earlier today.
Well, my only question was, I
Okay.
thought we already approved the contract with
So here's the question that I asked him. The assumption that I made, and I don't know what the other members thought was, for the $7,000, we were going to get the Facebook post. Correct? We were right or not?
No, I think from the conversation that you and I had earlier, I think what happened was that under your former superintendent, you received a proposal from us. You looked at it and you said, we'd like the $7,000. And then I came up and we talked, and you indicated that you wanted the social media, and I indicated that, well, if you want to give us both the core materials, such as website, mailings, things like that, and do the social media on top of that, that'd be $9,500. I wasn't gonna, unfortunately, I'm not gonna replace one with the other. And then I believe, although you didn't take a vote, you said, well, I think we need to go for that then. And so I drafted the contract for that.
So I guess I understand that, to a certain extent. But we have a signed contract for 7. We approved it.
Okay, so we did approve a contract.
Yes, we did.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. I thought this one is similar, but I was like, I thought we already. Yeah.
I don't believe I have a signed contract.
Well, I know we voted on it.
And we did approve it.
That is true, you discussed it in terms of our proposal, and we're more than willing to stand by what that proposal is, which is $7,000.
Well, and our big concern, I think, was just that we'd be able to put it on our website. And you assured us that we would be able to do it on our own website for that $7,000.
Absolutely you would.
That's, I
Right, and
think,
that's right, so we'd have the information and that would be a link on the website, and that's
Right.
still fine under our original agreement. This adds Facebook and additional media.
and we didn't, I don't think we cared about that so much. Well,
I was
we
more
can do it
concerned about having a link to the information that
on our
on the
website.
website, and that's what Todd had explained, but I don't know if other members wanted more bolstered socials.
What's gonna happen if we delay the,
Well, that's a good question, Todd.
what's gonna happen if we delay the referendum a year?
If you,
If we don't go out this fall for the operating referendum,
And we wait.
well, my strong advice is you make that decision before you vote on the contract.
That's-
And I would also say my strong advice is you make that decision tonight because you are desperately getting close to being late on this, so.
So, we get our social media report card and Facebook gets we get a lot of hits. So the dollars are not the issue. We have the dollars to pay for it. The issue is the misunderstanding as to where we thought we were, and where we are. So the question to the members is, how important is Facebook to this process?
Well, it's not important to Jackie.
I mean, it's not important to me because my face isn't on any book. But anyhow, the website, yes, absolutely. But do we get messages out on Facebook? So how many thousand people go on Facebook every day?
Well, my
Doesn't mean
question
that
is
it
this
can't be on
contract gonna,
Facebook, right?
if we decide that we're
yeah.
gonna wait?
Yeah.
Is this contract gonna still be good I mean, right? In the
I
next-
won't change the terms of the contract if you decide.
You would just wait,
You would just
and
wait.
do the media stuff closer to when the ask is. So if we don't go out this
Yeah.
year,
Well, to be fair, I think it's just a little bit more complicated than that, because if you wait, then you're going to bring into play any facilities planning you're doing. And if you're gonna go out for both an operating levy and facilities planning at the same time, there's just other complications that come into play then, which we just have to discuss going into that.
Right.
But if you go out for an operating levy next November, and you're not going for building, as long as I'm still running this business, if you want the core services, you'll get it for $7,000, and if you want the core services along with social media, you'll get it for $9,500. I'm not raising that price.
No. well, I think we have to vote on this, once we know what we're doing. Right?
Okay, so we have a meeting, we'll have 2 meetings in August. And the deadline is August 21st, Michelle? August 20th to file that resolution. We'll have meetings before that, okay? And we'll know a little bit more, but not much more. Because the facility study takes 90 days. 90 days from today is October,
But
We're not gonna have that, we know that, but the problem is that tonight, we were told now that we have to make a decision on what we already had decided to do. So I just don't think we can vote on Todd's contract until we decide to vote on whether or not we go out to operate. I mean, I know time is of the essence, but it doesn't make any sense to put Todd on the hook on something that we might not go.
We may not go out for it until next year. I get that. Yeah,
Will be the point of that.
okay,
Oh, how things change so rapidly.
so we'll have to, I think this one here we'll have to table. Just until we find out what the hell we're gonna do. Okay, so all
We currently have a contract.
We do have a
we
contract.
do have
for
one.
I think
For
so, Todd maybe
$7,000.
never received it.
But he never received it, obviously. We'll have to look it up. Because
Maybe it never
I'm
got
sure we
finalized.
voted.
I know we did.
We voted, but I don't, maybe, like I said, maybe it never got finalized by the office and sent to Tom for us. Possible, either.
So,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Michelle.
just to add to what I just said, either way, whether it's this year or next year.
They're in.
Yeah. And I would add here, community engagement meetings, where when we asked, how did you hear about a meeting? Quite a high percent said Facebook. Just something you might wanna look at your followers and how many followers you have.
I'm not too worried about the contract, honestly, I mean, right now, I mean, this is, as I told you, this is a passion of mine to do these, but I have school districts and had them this year that are thinking about going forward, and they backed off kind of late in the process because they just, situations come up, and so you've gotta be smart about this. You've got a new superintendent. He's probably still trying to figure out which keys work in which doors some days, and he's trying to figure out how to balance an operating levy and a building assessment, which is gonna take a lot of effort. So right now, I'm sitting here and I'm not worried about whether or not you're gonna hire me to work on this fall. I'm worried whether or not you're gonna be able to go out to your voters if you decide to move ahead. And you're gonna be able to be persuasive about this because you've had some struggles here administratively, and that does affect how people vote. And I think you need to if you make a decision on August 20th, my 2 cents is that the communications is not gonna be all that effective. You're gonna back to school just a few days later, and you're gonna have the first voting on September 17th. These things need more time than that. That's my advice to you, even though I may be
Second Monday in August,
The 9th.
the 9th. The 9th, we have to make a decision,
On whether we go forward
well,
now
again,
or.
Well, it doesn't, it doesn't sound like it matters whether, that our contract will be good whether we go with this year or next year, that's fine, but it just seems a little silly to add to it at this point if we're not going to.
We don't know, and then if we just, we already have the contract, I'm sure, which he doesn't know anything about, but anyway.
Lisa can find that contract. Lisa can find it.
It's effective, it's just not.
So let's do this. I will entertain a motion to table the RAP Strategies contract.
Until we decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the next,
It'll be the next,
meeting we need to.
it'll be the next board meeting, which is the 9th.
This contract.
His new
There's
proposal.
already a
contract.
This is a new proposal.
Just
Well,
adding
even
this,
if we
adding the
decide
social
if we're
media.
gonna go for that referendum or not,
Right.
because we'll probably still use them if we decide to do 2 of them.
Right.
However, we get more information out and be the best.
Yeah.
I think we should finalize that $7,000.
Todd,
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I'll do either, I honestly, it's up to you what services you need.
Yeah.
I just haven't, and if I had seen the other contract when I was up here earlier, you talked about social media, I would have said that would require an amendment to that contract. I just haven't seen a signed one, so.
So she said she found the contract, but it wasn't signed. So
that would be why you never.
that would be why you never said. But I think that, don't you think that they should go ahead and finalize that?
Yeah,
Sign it, send it?
So we vote on,
we just table this one and just sign it.
Yeah.
Rather than do the old one and then
so if we vote, if we vote, let's for argument's sake, to approve this, we don't have a signed contract with Todd right now, according to what Lisa said.
and then we don't have to do an amendment to the old contract.
Yeah.
We can just do the new contract. That's.
I mean, I don't have an issue, like I said, it's not the dollars, but I assumed.
So we already have one, me too, that we have.
Yeah. I assumed that we had a signed contract because we approved it, we voted on it.
Okay, and would it be a problem then if there was the two referendums, if we're going for the building and the bond, operating referendum?
Next November? I don't know yet. And the reason I say that is because I'm under this year, I'm under an agreement with ICS Builds, it's a competitor of Ingenza, to work with them on. Hey, we're all friends in this business, don't worry. And I have worked with Jackie in the past too. So, but I don't know whether next year or not I'll have an exclusive contract with them or I'll be a free agent on building plans, and so.
Sure.
Okay.
So, but let's cross that. You've got a lot of decisions to make between now and then before you determine
Or
where
you
you
could
get the best
still do the
communications.
operating part, or the bond portion.
The operating levy, that's Todd's bailiwick.
But I'd be happy to do the bond portion also if I'm not contractually prohibited from doing
Okay.
it. So.
Okay.
Now we do.
So those are the wishes of the board.
I just think it makes more sense to do what you guys said, just table it until the August 9th meeting, and then we'll have a working session, and we'll come and we'll vote on the operating levy, and I mean, it does look like we're don't know what we're doing, but we did know what we're doing until just now, so, I mean.
Okay, so
let's have fun.
I will entertain that motion to table the RAD Strategies contract until the next board. Motion is by Shelley. Support by Cindy. Table. Okay, all those in favor? Aye, opposed. Motion carries. Moving on to item I is the SR budget proposal. Sorry.
Who's that
I'm a little less formal right now. Because my brain is mush. Anyway,
The sheet that was provided to you in the board packet, options for federal funds, is a sheet in part that you've seen before. What's in bold is what we had talked about in late spring as far as some opportunities that you could use the ESSER funding for. Did provide already what has been done thus far, because you've made independent decisions throughout. You can see the first 4 items were already included in the preliminary budget, which was adopted in June. And then 2 different motions for the security camera upgrades and whiteboard and, and the social studies teacher also came in the June meeting. But then the security camera upgrades and whiteboards in the July meeting. There's still additional dollars that haven't been earmarked. Those, some of the possible areas to spend have been identified as far as, do you look at a curriculum specialist, the Canvas, warehousing, curriculum replacement, purchase or lease of a new bus, of which you heard from Hoagland at our last board meeting, and then air conditioning in the shop office. And then the additional funding that's come in since the inception of the ESSER conversation that we started having this spring. So I guess I'm looking to the board to say, is there anything else that you'd like to start having a conversation about, possibly taking action on to get on this, to get dedicated as ESSER funding uses? and we start moving forward.
I think what we have here is pretty comprehensive. I mean, I can't think of another thing that, you know, of course, to me, the curriculum thing is the most important thing in my mind. And it's just to get that thing adjusted and back up to par. So, any other thoughts from members?
Okay, Kristen, so right now, is it on the bottom is what's come in that we haven't earmarked?
No.
Or we have
So what had happened was when I had started with the kind of the initial presentation, that was before the gear and the discretionary funding, the Finance 162 and the Finance 150 were finalized. So we were taking summer programming and taking it off the top,
Okay.
where we don't need to anymore because they're backfilling mental health summer programming with these additional funds.
What about the alarms for the, you know, we getting quotes for, is that something we should put on there for the coolers? That come under the SR fund as well?
What do you mean, the entry doors or?
No, the coolers.
The one that we just talked about tonight.
The ones that you just talked about.
Walk-in freezers.
For the alarms, I would actually prefer to use capital. You know, I always look at it and say, if we have to defend the intention of the ESSER funding, whether it be for, I mean, I suppose you could say we're not serving the kids rotten food. That's a goal. You know, I would say as far as the coolers go and that, we have funding elsewhere that I would feel more comfortable using than I would the ESSER funding.
Okay.
So in other words, you're asking us to like finalizing, like, okay, so let's finalize the fact that we're gonna use the 100,000 for the curriculum replacement.
Yeah, there's areas, again, where if we're going to start moving on these items, I would actually say, you know, maybe even the personnel, the specialist, you know, we're late into the hiring season for that, but it's kind of, we're coming into August.
Right.
So if we're going to move on any of this stuff, you know, as we work through the year, we should really take that into consideration, just like the bus. You know, we had talked about purchase versus lease. What is the age of our fleet? What does that look like? You know, the concern for me as I've had conversations with Adrian and Brian is that we're gonna hit another funding cliff. Like we can lease 3 buses and that seems very appropriate. We have, you know, strong equipment that we're not relying on one mechanic to help to maintain it all. But then the board has to realize we need to start getting on a cycle. Because otherwise in 3 years, that lease is gonna expire, we're gonna have more equipment that's older and you're gonna be kind of back in the same boat. No different than the curriculum. You haven't done curriculum in a really long time, you need to start, but you also need to realize what this does is buy you time to move in, you know, to make the decisions for the future. Cause it doesn't go away, it just helps you get it jump started to recover.
So do we need a motion to approve this proposal?
Yeah,
Is this, are you feeling okay with all these things?
I agree with what she's saying, you know, we're gonna have to be very cautious with the bus piece because it will fall off a cliff, and so if these 3 are coming due and another couple are coming due at the same time, we're gonna be faced with that, so we're gonna have to prepare for that now, knowing that this is a one-time injection of money. The curriculum pieces, I'd like to get those posted tomorrow, because if internal candidates accept, we need to post their positions, and we're getting late in the game. And we currently have an individual that is owed a 1.0, that we need these dominoes to fall so we take care of our folks.
okay.
For clarification, if you decide to move forward with the remainder of the bolded items, the intent for the purchase or lease of a new bus, we would be looking at the lease option. We would be looking at 3, which is once we sell the old stuff, probably about a $30,000 differential. We'll come up with that through capital dollars or something, but I don't want you to think it's a 0. And again, we'd be looking at 3, but what I would recommend, as you guys move forward is a set aside. Like every year you just take a certain sum of money and just set it aside, because it's a lot easier to bridge that gap when you've been.
So that's what we're
saving.
looking at, is leasing 3 buses.
Yes, and again, that will be more expensive than the 95, so if at the end of the day, again, these are all estimates. If
Right.
at the end of the day, there's not enough money available in ESSER to cover the 3, we only allocated 95, maybe there will be, maybe we'll have extra money and we can just do it. If not, it'll be coming out of capital.
And then the sale of the other buses are
Will apply to
unknown,
that.
so it would apply to that.
Yes.
Your biggest buses are gonna.
And are they gonna fit in the garage?
These ones, yes.
You're not gonna have to fit your mirror in those little holes?
Well, yes.
Oh, that will never change, okay. Okay.
Okay.
I'm for, I'm.
So- I'll entertain a motion to approve the ESSER budget proposal as presented.
So maybe, support.
Okay, we have a motion by Cindy, support by Shelley. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item J is to approve professional memberships. Okay.
Oh, you can help me. Do we have MASC for 860? Minnesota Rural Education Association, 941 for the first year, and 1,882 annually. Minnesota Board of School Administrators, $100, and Minnesota School Board Association.
Okay, I guess,
He's, it's 3,986 for the dues. Policy support, 730. Board book subscription, 2,100.
so,
Policy support. I don't know if we've ever had that. That's if we.
That's
have
what we
had
had
that
with
in the past?
MSBA.
I talked to him personally on the phone.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
so
just all
I
that
thought
stuff
that
they put
was,
online probably.
I think it's their updates.
Yeah, their updates, you know.
was that for the updates and that?
so.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that was if we wanted to write the policies or whatever. Okay, all right, so the total to MSBA is 6,860. That's just to no, that's for all of us, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm meeting with
No, that's just total
MSBA
you were
this
right.
week, so
Yeah,
that's,
okay, MSBA.
Mayor.
Okay. So the question I have, and Adrian's gonna have a meeting with MREA. What do they bring to the table that MSBA doesn't?
Overall Education Association.
we're the only member or the only district that is not a member in the northern region. He's coming Thursday, I'll know more information then. I know it does support lobbyists and fighting for rural schools. Were you part of that? Okay.
Was a member. And they're very strong advocates for rural school districts.
Oh, this one.
Okay, so if we approve all of these, which, I understand that, but, do we need to approve MREA before we even know what it's all about?
Well, the first year is 941, which is almost identical to the Minnesota Association of School Administrators. I mean, we could do the first year and then Adrian could let us know what we get out of it. I don't think we're bound to continue to move it
Yeah.
to school.
Yeah, and it's still way less than, MSBA is 4,000 a year, and this is also 2,000 a year.
Yeah.
They don't have any policy books or anything, or,
Yeah,
I think we could give it a chance. I mean, try this
Okay.
the first year, see what it offers. Adrian's gonna meet with them and then we can, if we don't think it's worthwhile, we can always just not renew it next year.
All right, that's a good idea, okay. So we're going to vote to, need a motion to approve the professional memberships as indicated.
Clarice did, I'll support.
Clarice made the motion and Jackie supported. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item K is to approve Jesse Trenell as volunteer junior high volleyball coach for the 2021 season.
Should we get a background check in that? Okay.
She's gonna call. I feel like she has been.
I know, she's gotta have it every year, don't they have to have a background check every year?
Okay, so the motion was made by Jackie. Their support,
Support.
or by Cindy. Okay, any discussion?
Just what Clarice said, pending of course.
Background
check. Yeah, whatever's required for the.
Yeah.
Policy for
Yeah,
I forgot my
Sheet two.
easy for you to see. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item L is to approve a Bait Tech proposal to remove floor tile and mastic and air monitoring for the Von Steffens Root School.
George, which room number was that? 9, thank you. Room 9 has cracked tiles in it that need immediate attention or the room will be shut down. And we do have an additional room that will be a temporary housing if this process extends beyond the start of the year. But the sooner we act on this, the better, and there is money earmarked for this in long-term facilities maintenance. Yeah, it's just the one room right now. In September, there's gonna be someone coming to talk to the board about where we're at in the process, what we'll be doing moving forward, but we may have additional information at that stage.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the sooner the better, because I have to pull,
We haven't had it for now.
yep,
I believe we're on good time.
the air monitoring, the permitting and things.
We anticipated this, you guys, we
Yeah.
talked about this at field work session.
I'll make a
So,
motion.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to accept the
Support. Clarice by Jackie.
Clarice by Jackie.
Yeah, I was like, real long the meeting, not you particularly, just in general.
Listen, I don't care what you do to me.
Too much information.
That's right, that's right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item M is to approve a 1-year leave of absence for Jamie Holberg from her current paraprofessional position. Motion Clarice, and support by Shelley. So she's moving.
Yes, so in my superintendent report, about 2/3 of the way down, she's gonna continue to serve Chisholm for speech services, but it's going to be hired through the NLC, and then will be billed that way for that service because she upped her license.
Do you think that has, I mean, she's in the union, right? How does that work? I mean, she's one of our, so then she just goes and contracts herself out somewhere else and she's really doing a job that was earmarked for, I mean, our aides, our paras. Is that?
But it has to do with a licensure that is difficult to find in this area.
Okay.
And yes, and so by getting that, it actually benefits us if it comes from there and bills to us. Financially, it benefits us.
Yeah.
To specialized cases.
Right, and did that just happen?
Just happened.
Or they just made that, where they wanted this specialized license?
Just hired their, oh, I thought you were asking a question.
No,
She just got there.
how did she do it for all these years without the license?
That I don't know. I only know what happened recently.
Yeah, there was a service, I think, that I don't.
Oh, yeah, because they did it, she didn't actually, I mean, she worked with a speech person.
Yeah.
On the computer, you know, she
Yeah.
just kind of brought the kids there and, you know, she worked under the.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve a 1-year leave of absence for Jamie Mulberg. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item N is to approve Lisa Aldrich's application to become a notary for the Chisholm Public Schools.
So made.
Motion by Jackie, supported by Shelley. Any comments or questions?
We've had a number of requests, so.
You might be waiting for 6 months. We have, this issue in our office, in a meeting.
I got mine.
So I'm a notary.
Okay.
But I said, we have your staff in our office, we applied, we called on it.
I got mine, so.
Okay.
A new application.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
I don't
carries.
think to renew it, it takes long, but.
Okay, item O is to approve the PSEO contract with Hibbing Community College.
I support that. Yes. I'll make the motion.
Okay, Jackie made the motion and Clarice supported. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item P is to approve a 3-year leave of absence for Jamie Steinberg from his teaching and athletic director positions.
I support, I'll make a motion.
Motion is by Clarice. Do we have a support? Support by Jackie. Greener pastures, as they say apparently. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on into information.
You know, get those from the athletic director.
We've got some work to do at our next working session. Oh, the independent electric needed to get approved, that was,
Yeah.
Would that be
An
the other
amendment.
suggestions?
Oh, amendment, or the last one.
Which one here?
So item Q
Oh,
is a bid for electrical services with Ryan's Independent Electric for a high school GCFI equipment. Okay, George, can you explain this?
What's happening is we're losing a part of the high school. We're losing the shops and the hallways and upstairs by the auditorium, it blacks out, just the breaker trips out. We've had to redo it, reset it, Ryan's had to come here 3 times to reset it, because it is a large breaker. So he's went and made some phone calls and did some light work for us. And they think they know what the problem is, and it's inside the switch here. And I was talking to Ryan, he told me that he remembered replacing that hasn't been passed. So it's been like 25 years. The problem is if we don't replace it, just because of where it's at, if it does go out, let's say that someone's working in the shop or something, the lights go hold on, and they're working in the saw or something like that.
No,
Okay,
okay, so I'll make a motion to approve.
support. Okay, this motion was made by Jackie and the support is by Cindy on electrical services, Ryan's Independent.
Kristen, do you have the money?
What the heck, why not?
We don't need anyone cut with power tools in the dark. That's
Mine's a
something
little
to worry
red,
about.
pushing a check.
that's what I heard.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion
Yeah,
carries.
electrical things are always, like, must get.
Okay, item A, under information, is Louis Kropotnik's pictures of the bus garage.
And we've got
That's,
Oh, we got caught.
Bemidji State contract for student teachers and the NLC lease rate.
okay, item E then, under information, is the Bemidji State University contract for student teaching. that needs our approval?
It's just information.
I thought it was just
That's
information. Let's be approved or?
Oh,
we, yes,
We'll approve it next week, next 2 weeks, now, next meeting.
we can add that, or you can vote on it, whatever you choose. It's basically saying if we get a student teacher, that's their base.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we can just add that as item
Yeah.
R.
I read it, I was just approving it, that's fine.
Motion
Just
by
approve it. I'll make a
Maurice.
motion to approve the
And-
BSU.
Second by Shelley.
Because that's, we do that every year. for
Yeah,
student
we do.
The
teachers.
university contract, okay,
Mhm.
The lease breakdown was just informational,
That's
so
it.
you can see
Yeah.
see what it is, how much it
what that
is,
is.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
And these were the bus pictures that I'll pass around so you can, the black and whites don't do the justice that these did,
Oh,
so if you wanna take a look at what that situation looks like.
That's the type
Okay.
screen, sir.
all those in favor of the Bemidji State University contract, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So you can just cut holes in the wall for it, that's perfect.
Yeah, so we take the drive the buses, they have the year certificate rate goes home.
My goodness.
I used to get a real nervous tick every time I had to drive the buses into that garage.
You have to come in, you're tired after a game.
If you can't make it,
And then you better not be near the back of a bus when you put the door down,
did you say you're in college now?
especially if you're a little thicker.
So I think you guys have made those spots way too big, I think you make those smaller, and just test yourself.
When I was expecting a baby, I did not fit between the bus and the door. I guarantee you.
I don't think I could be there now.
I don't know if I can now, either.
Okay.
Kind of a suit, that's what it was, like this. and
Yeah,
then-
it is, I know.
I like your picture.
I was like cross-eyed looking at.
Brian? What are you getting at here?
Thanks, you parked the buses without hitting the pole, is that what this is? You parked it very good.
Okay. Okay, now.
Just information, so you guys can see.
Information on the Northland Learning Center lease. So we'll look at it another time. Okay.
There's
Now,
a meeting this week with myself and Alex to discuss lease levy option
Yeah.
versus general fund.
okay. Okay, so item B under information is the PSEO enrollment. Interesting,
Some numbers you asked a couple meetings ago to get that.
yeah.
And they go in that, they double checked and did they get their notifications to the office by the deadline, by the or maybe by June, middle of June, notify us that they're gonna attend PSC?
That I wouldn't know, Mark would probably be the one to
Yeah.
speak to it.
Also, because there's that rule in there that they have to notify the school. It's supposed to be May 30th, we did that policy, we pushed it out until the middle of June.
And I'm unsure.
Okay, but that would just be curious. I don't know how many eleventh graders or tenth and eleventh graders we had last year, but that's
Quite
quite a few. And to be going to PSEO or eleventh, you have to be in the top 1/3 class, I think.
We have
Junior,
50% for
and to
seniors.
go, yeah, to go in your senior.
We definitely have to see on top of that PSU. We
So both
definitely
those kids are meeting,
The criteria for that.
yeah,
Well, right, 'cause
I mean, we have to.
if you have 21 juniors, if you only have 50 kids in the class, how are you the top and third, that's like half the class.
Okay, well, so item D is a possible working session date, which I know we need to have. The question is, do we, a couple dates there, because I'm never gonna have another working session as long as I'm chair on a board meeting. Never again. So, that was my mistake. So, I mean, what works better for each other, everybody? And then the other question is the information that we're gonna need to be discussing.
Right, we don't wanna, we need some, we need to get Adrian or whoever is getting some information together, so I feel like second might be too close. I could do something that week or
Number
that,
16, so we get a better idea to start the.
but we wanna make,
Well,
we wanna make
for the
motion,
ninth,
we wanna make motions
So
potentially.
board meeting's the 9th, so again, we got a decision to make by the 20th.
Yeah.
What about the fourth or the fifth?
Yeah.
I don't have any problems with any dates, I don't, just not board meeting nights. And the information that we need is,
Well, Jackie, you're usually the one that's got stuff going on at night. Anything I do going is during the day, the doctors like to work at night.
Right, and I was just thinking I'd like to be able to start earlier for you guys, but on the fifth, I think I could do 5. On the fourth, I could maybe even go a little earlier if you guys want to start late. Fourth is bad. I feel like Thursday, the fifth, at least gives a little bit more days for you guys to get anything together that you want to talk about, if we're gonna try to put it on the 9th,
agenda,
right?
yeah. Let's do that. Everybody,
Otherwise, I feel, at least we're gonna go from everything to the 16th.
you okay?
I'm fine with whatever you choose. One of those dates I'm at ARC, but I'll need to come up here.
Let's do Thursday, 5th, how's that?
What, at 5?
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Lisa, did you get that?
Yep. Especially in regards to time.
People really know us.
I know, I just feel like we gotta talk about it before we come back and make
Make
the
the final
decision.
decision.
So the curveball you're gonna get thrown at that meeting, just so you know, we have to start talking return to learn COVID protocols.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, MDH and MDE are coming out with some things that will be guidelines. I believe they're going to also talk about site controls. Yes. The one thing that they've stood firm on is all transportation, all individuals.
Oh, mask, yeah. Well, not a Halloween mask either.
So, okay, that's a big agenda item.
That's a big one we need to talk through.
Let's see.
Yeah.
That's just a heads up. And we'll have more information tomorrow. If anything's earth shattering, I'll share. Don't count on it.
Yeah.
Because there's still a long time from now until school starts where things could change.
And then change every other day.
Oh, that's right. But,
Okay,
and I did give an example in there of what Duluth rolled out, just so you had something to go by. St. Louis County and Mountain Iron also.
Yeah.
Listen to the medical doctor.
okay,
All the science.
any other information from members?
Anything else on
Hi.
the superintendent?
Yeah, the superintendent's report.
Oh, yes, Adrian, I'm
I
sorry.
get a lot of them.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't need to read it to you, but I'll just do a highlight reel. Another
Thank you for
head,
that.
another heads up that the mayor wants to come and talk about the field house. Just your
That's
heads
a
up.
working session item too.
I agree.
Right into our working session.
That's a working session item.
And I went to meet with both Perkins Grant coordinators from Wasabi and different community colleges and had sit-down meetings with them and then the individual that does that role in getting schools to talk about career pathways.
Good, that's good.
Yeah, that's something we need to start exploring.
Because we used to have that. Yeah, we had a director, but.
Had lunch the other day with
Kiwanis?
Kiwanis.
Our big club.
And then the other,
It's fine. We plan that constantly go, we have more.
another thing that Ingensa's helping us with is a secure entryway. So basically where you came in tonight, creating a second set of doors that look just like that. In between the two sets of doors, there's a video monitor where you can hit a button. It'll go to the superintendent's administrative assistant's office, and they will be able to conversate and buzz someone in. You can also set it for open hours, but it can be secured during the school day. So when FedEx or UPS shows
They
up,
have to be done.
they need to be busted. And so that's coming.
Yeah, good idea.
And that's kind of the highlight reel.
Yeah.
The rest is on there.
Thank you for this.
It's a very,
I had very few,
detailed.
yeah, I had very few questions because I knew what you had on your agenda and then we covered a lot of different.
Yeah.
Very
It's so
nice.
nice to have all this stuff in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All your meetings go 2 hours instead of 30 minutes.
Instead of 30 minutes.
I feel like we should have had some longer meetings before we would have had
Maybe we
maybe done some more stuff.
I can't, I think I looked at the artist market, I told Bob,
Yeah,
apologize,
so-
and when I looked that night, we were kind of looking for.
It's just it's the opening celebration. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So many.
Yeah.
Motion is by Clarice, and support by the chair.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 6:58.
I need you to sign a resolution.
Lord have mercy, I love my windows open like it's.
Lisa, you want to? Yes, I do. Thank you so much, by the way, that was so nice.
Do you have a copy of that resolution?
No, I know, I felt bad. You're picking it quick, I'm taking that.
You're doing fine. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you very much for that. And by the way, you're using
And then I'll fill in.
Hey,
This is actually wild, like.
you know what you didn't vote on that you were supposed to? Moving forward with them. No, you didn't. Want to reconvene for a vote?
Jackie.
Hang on, don't leave, Jackie. Hang on, Shelley.
Holler for Shelley.
Shelley.
Oh, you have a forum without her.
What's
That's the last
the
one.
Okay.
You got too much on your plate.
I do.
Oh.
No.
Jackie, you can drop me off at Valentine's. Yeah, sure.
Because it wasn't for dominance and action
Hang on.
items. Dominance and precipitation.
Is that on the facility? Is that where what is?
We're about to vote on Jensen's proposal.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, Michelle.
That's, you know, nevertheless, good catch.
Well, I asked about that,
Okay,
we're supposed to take
so-
some action.
Yeah.
Nobody took-
So the proposal is as shown. So,
And I think we all agree that we need it. So, I mean,
yeah,
this is the facilities, the book.
that's the book, yeah. So, as you see, the dollars total, find it here,
It's 95 or something.
yeah,
Oh, it was a strategic plan.
96 something, isn't it? 95, 898?
Yeah, there's two phases and it's right there.
I have it right here, the project dated 98, here, 96,
99 total
Okay.
for phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah,
That's just for phase 1 is
Oh, that's phase 1.
3098, phase 2 is 67,
Facilities project.
yeah,
And work with us on that.
okay, we got that now, I found it. Okay, so, that's it. Yeah, I got it. Should escape. So anyhow, need a motion to, on the Ingenza,
project development agreement.
PDA.
yeah. We have a motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Jackie, support by Clarice. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're adjourned at 7:02.
I asked about that,
You
guys.
did.